Alright, well, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch it. And in today's video, I want to be talking about the Raptors 24 games into the season, how I'm feeling about this team, and I think some things that we really need to address that have clearly been problems throughout the beginning of this year. First thing I think that's really bothering me is the lack of defined offensive roles and a hierarchy. I think some nights, we have Pascal be the main ball handler and get the ball into him every single possession. But last night, there was really long stretches of the game, like 2-3 minutes, where Pascal did not touch the ball, and our offense just halted. And some of that's due to guys like Fred VanVleet knowing he has the green light to take some of those unadvised shots, and he's been doing that, especially with his shot not falling. Those are looking worse and worse as each game gets played. But also, I think it goes back to a bigger problem of just we don't know who 1, 2, 3 is on offense. Some nights it seems like Pascal's, like I said, the defined number one, but other nights kind of Fred takes that role. OG kind of has been taking that role, especially with Pascal out, and Scotty sometimes takes that role. And so I think we really need to address it, and I would really like to see the offensive hierarchy be defined like this. Pascal is the main ball handler and shot creator. I think when he has the ball in his hands, we get the best three-point looks out of any ball creator. We also get the most kind of off-ball action because the defense really needs to react to Pascal, and because he's such a threat from the mid-range extended to the long mid-range, it still provides decent spacing for guys to cut around, move off-ball, relocate. And I think when Pascal has the ball in his hands, we see the best. He's averaging the most assists out of anyone on our team, and he looks like the best creator on our team. Secondly, I would like to see Scotty Barnes as our secondary ball handler. I know he doesn't have the offensive game to kind of stretch the defense in the same way, but he's such a force attacking the rim and in a downhill motion that I think the defense still needs to react and collapse on him. And I think he definitely has the vision and the skill to hit tough passes, and because of his height, it lets him see over doubles better, lets him kick out the ball better. And I'd just rather see him grow in the role than let someone like Fred be the secondary ball handler, who I think just doesn't quite have the IQ to fill that role. I know he's a very smart defensive player and a pretty solidly smart offensive player, but I just think he falls in love with his shot, his own opportunity a little too much. I remember in the Magic game, he tried to take a step back three over Bol. Bro, you're 6 foot. He is 7'3" with a 7'7" standing reach. You're not shooting over him. Just why take that shot? And there's just a lot of opportunities in games where I feel like Fred just goes for the quick three, and it kills the momentum our team is building back up, or it takes the wind out of our sails so they get a transition bucket. And I think Fred either needs, if he's going to be the secondary ball handler on this team, he needs to take a more pass-first role, or he needs to move down to the third ball handler and let Scotty and Pascal kind of be point forwards and let them run the show a lot, and Fred kind of take over, alleviate some of the pressure off them when they can, or just attack, dribble, closeouts, nice pump threes. I still think Fred can be a primary, a good ball handler, but I just think he needs to reduce his role a little bit and let those guys grow a bit better. I really, really like those reverse screens that they were running at the beginning of the year with Pascal and Fred at the top of the key, where Fred sets the screen and you get Pascal going downhill, or Pascal can pass out to him if they choose to double out of those actions. I really like those plays. I think they need to get back to it. I would like to see some dribble handoffs potentially between Fred and OG, Scotty, or Pascal, just to get them going to a head of steam. I think the defense would be very confused by those. It would be kind of hard to react. And I think, too, Fred's a smart enough player to know when he can slip those screens, when he can cut out from those screens. And if he has the ball in his hands, he can fake the dribble handoff attack or just step back. And I do like him more in that role, but I just don't like him in the role he's currently filling. I know he's going through a shooting slump, but it's been going on for a very long time, so I don't think it's necessarily just a shooting slump. I think it's just ill-advised shots some of the time, tanking his average. I like him in a catch-and-shoot role. At the end of the clock, 5-6 seconds, I'm fine with Fred taking the last shot. I think he's one of our better kind of bailout guys, but I think we need to take the ball out of his hands just a little bit and let our other guys go to work. OG, I think, has been pretty amazing on the offensive end, especially with Pascal out the last few months or few games. He's really stepped up. And with Pascal's back in the lineup, he's really adjusted to that secondary role very well, playing off of him. I think he still needs to reduce his creation attempts just a little bit. I don't really like him taking those mid-range jumpers at the top of the key. He's not been very effective doing that. But he's been amazing attacking the rim. I think he's amazing at attacking the closeout. Great in transition. I like him in the dunker spot. I think he's a really good cutter. I think he spaces the floor very effectively, but I think he just needs to reduce his creation attempts just a little bit. He is turning the ball over a lot less when he has the creation opportunities, and he is a lot more under control going to the basket, which I like. So I'm fine with him attacking closeouts, or maybe like a couple ISO possessions every once in a while where he's going straight downhill, or get him involved in some screen actions where he can build up a head of steam and go to the basket, because I think he's very hard to stop. He's a very powerful athlete and is surprisingly explosive. So I think in those roles, OG can really shine, but I think he just needs to reduce his ISO creation just a little bit. And with Gary Trent off the junior, Gary Trent Jr. off the bench, I've been very happy with that. I think he adds a level of dynamicism to our offense, especially our bench offense. That seems sometimes very stagnant. We don't really have any creators or anyone who can really collapse a defense. He has been shooting very poorly from three, but I think that's going to come up. He's still shooting a good amount of attempts. I think that's just something that's going to come with the rhythm. One thing that I really like, and this is what I wanted to see from Gary Trent Jr. over the offseason, is an increase at just his rim attempts and also his rim finishing. He's shooting a lot better. He's shooting 67% at the rim, which is up from 58% last year, I'm pretty sure. And he's shooting about 56 feet from 3 to 10 feet out, which is also up from last year. And I think if he can develop those parts of his games just a little bit more, it will really make him a true 3-level scorer. He's pretty good at getting to his spot and hitting his mid-range pull-ups, and when his 3-point shot comes along, I think it's going to make teams respect his overall offensive game very well. And off the bench, I think it lets him kind of just create a little bit more. I still think he needs to be a bit smarter on offensive pass out, but I think he's gotten a lot better at those skills. And yeah, I don't want to overreact to this team. I think the offense is pretty much the biggest problem that we've had. And yeah, we did lose to the Boston Celtics yesterday, but I think that was a really tough fight. A couple of iffy calls here and there. Plus, also, I think some people need to remember we're missing Otto Porter Jr., who's one of our best 3-point shooters and just a very solid vet. And we're missing Precious Achiuwa, who I think is arguably our second to third most impactful defender. I know he hasn't played great to start this year, but last year he ranked in 98th percentile in defensive field goal efficiency, which is not the best stat, but still I think a respectable stat. He also ranked in 90th percentile in rim protection and 90th percentile in rim blocks. So just stuff like that. Sorry, not rim blocks, but just rim protection. But I think that just goes to show kind of how valuable he is. He's an extremely versatile athlete. I know people are like, oh well, OG can play the same role. I just don't think OG can guard bigs in the same way that Precious can, because he's not used to it. Precious has been guarding bigs his whole kind of basketball career. OG's been more of a perimeter guy, so he has those tools and that kind of intelligence better. I think Precious still needs to work on some things, of course, but I really do think he's a key to our offense and defense, and really just adds another level of energy and dynamicism off the bench for us. And same thing with Otto Porter. So I don't want to come to great reactions off this team, but I think we're definitely missing some pieces. I think we're a couple of years off from really ever contending, and I don't think we can contend with this core. I think OG, Precious, and Pascal are the three guys we really, really need to keep. I know it seems hard to let Fred go, but I think if we can find ball handling and shooting in the offseason, we should pursue that over signing Fred to a bigger deal. I think he's extremely valuable to our team currently, because we don't have a guard playmaker or any really viable guard play off the bench, and we don't have great shooting, but I think we can find those two things for the same price tag that we could get Fred for. We could probably get them at a little bit of a higher size. I wouldn't mind just picking up a good rotational guard, good starting level guard, and then finding a bench shooter somewhere throughout the league. I think that's something we should really think about in this offseason, trying to add more shooting. And I think too, because it is weird sometimes watching Fred out there being the only 6-foot guy with a bunch of 6'9", 6'8" guys all around him. And I think it does really hurt our defensive scheme. I mean, he hustles hard. He's an elite defender. He plays much bigger than his size. And he's been closing out really, really hard. He's been trying to contest the best he can, but you just can't really contest on a closeout when you're 6 feet and the guy you're contesting on is 6'5" and is not even looking at you. You can't really bother that. He's not a great leaper. He doesn't have a great wingspan to make up for those things. And the way we play our defense is very double, react, close out, double, react, close out. And while Fred is great in some of those situations on ball, being a perimeter stopper, he's not great at closing out. He's limited in size, so the switch all defense doesn't really work very well with him. Um, and yeah, there's just clear defensive limitations when you're only 6 feet and not the most athletic guard in the building. I think we're seeing those limitations with Fred in our defense, especially this year, and with his offensive game not being there, it's really hard to find a reason to like want to stick it out. I'm a big fan of him. I don't want to give up on him, and like I know he did a lot for us last year and carried us through a long portion of the season. I know he can be an all-star caliber player, but I think we want to unlock Scotty as a playmaker more. I think Pascal's shown that he can be a lead ball handler as a point forward. And I think if we can use the money we would spend on Fred on shooting and additional ball handling, that's more valuable than just re-signing him. Gary Trent Jr., I think we should try to hold on. I think he can really develop into an elite three-way or three-level offensive piece while still being solidly disruptive on defense. I think he's shown a lot more defensive intensity since Nick Nurse called him out. And then the last thing I really want to talk about is Nick Nurse's offensive scheme and defensive scheme. I think the defensive scheme is really good most of the part. I think it has clear holes where it lets role players kind of pop off for big nights, but I'd rather focus on a star and let the role players beat us on the road than let the star kind of cook one-on-one. So I understand why he plays the defensive scheme he does, and I think it's very effective when we have the right pieces and players out there. But I think when we lack the amount of players to kind of keep fresh legs out there and size to really effectively implement his defensive system, there are clear holes and times where it doesn't do the best, and we saw those with those two 40-point quarters. The defensive scheme really relies on players' effort and being fully engaged on that end. So when we don't have that, it can kind of show a little bit. But I'm fine with that, and I'm happy the way he plays defense. And I think Nick Nurse is a great coach. But I think on offense, he needs to just run more set plays or like something to organize these people. I know he really likes to play read and react offense, and I know we have a lot of ball handlers and creators and guys who can put on the floor who can react, but I don't think we have as many like high IQ offensive players as he thinks who can read, react, make the next pass, or are selfish enough to read, react, and make the next pass. And I think we just need to run a couple more either off-ball screens, off-ball sets while we have Pascal kind of isolated on one end of the floor, run some things to get people cutting downhill or something. But I just really think he needs to improve the offensive scheme a little bit and start running more set plays and organizing these things and setting up an offensive hierarchy kind of more officially. Of course, Nick Nurse knows way more about basketball than I probably ever will and is a much better basketball mind and knows what he's doing. But from just an outside perspective, that's kind of what I'm seeing and what I want to see. I think we have the right pieces to be able to run pretty like nice half-court offenses. I really do think so. There's no reason why we should be bottom in the league in half-court offense when we have the type of pieces we have. So I think that comes down to Nick Nurse's managing of the offensive scheme, and he needs to just improve on that. And yeah, I mean, I think we're going to still be a solid playoff team. I think we're going to be a top 6 seed. People have been really gloom and doom over the last few weeks because we had those 2 bad losses and a loss last night to Boston. But I'm not worried. I think the Pacers are still going to fall off. I think we're better than the Hawks. I think we're better than the Heat. I think the Nets are a team that on paper are definitely better than us, but are one of those things that I always can't put a lot of faith in their ability to stick it all throughout the whole year with no injuries or who knows what could happen. Of course, I don't want anything like that to happen, but I think we're going to be in the playoff race. I think we're going to be a top 6 seed, and I think depending on the matchup, we have a really good chance to make it to the second round, which I'm okay with. I want this group, especially Scotty, Gary Trent Jr., and OG to get a lot of playoff experience, and Precious and guys like that to see what we really have. But I think come this offseason, we should try to make some upgrades to this roster, if that's just letting Fred go and getting better pieces and more players, or using some of our picks and some of our other assets like OG or Gary Trent Jr. to try to get a star. But I'm riding it out this season. I'm not worried. I don't think we should make any drastic moves this season. I think we should make some moves at the trade deadline just for some extra ball handling. But we'll see what the offseason holds, and we'll see how this season goes. But I'm still really confident about this team. And yeah, thank you for listening to my video, and I hope you liked it. Like and subscribe if you would like, but no worries. Take care.